Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another feisty episode of the Single Parents Podcast. This is the podcast for anybody whose life may have turned out a little less than traditional. I'm going to stop yapping here in a second and get to the good stuff because we have an awesome interview for you all today that I did with a dope single dad who is just into some cool things and has a legit mindset, and it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be awesome. You saw the title of the episode, you kind of know what's going down. So we're gonna jump into that with my good friend Austin here in a moment. But before we do, just wanted to say a couple of things. If you like the show, then maybe consider sharing the podcast with somebody else. Maybe a friend, maybe a family member, maybe with somebody at your MMA gym. Just make sure to pass along the show so we can get it to more people. We build the community and we get more awesome voices, maybe even on the show, like our guest Austin today. But for yourself, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on automatic downloads so you never miss an episode in the future. We're going to be bringing on more guests. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be hot. You're going to want to stay tuned. And then last but not least, if you feel so inclined to do so, then perhaps consider rating the show 5 stars, the highest rating possible on your favorite podcast hosting platform. So that way the algorithms out there know that the show is legit and it passes it along to more people. All right, so I'm done yapping. Let's turn it over to another version of Anthony and get into this interview.
Something to relate to.
All right, everybody. Well, super excited because I have, for once in a very long time, have a guest joining with me on the podcast this week. And not only is it a guest, but this marks a first for the Single Parent Podcast, life of the show, whatever you want to say, because this is the first time I actually have a fellow single dad, fellow single father on the show. We talked to some single moms. We love our single moms, but today's conversation is going to be between one single dad and another. So very excited to have my good friend Austin joining the podcast today. Austin, how's it going, man? Thanks for being here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Everything's going good. Just being a father, martial artist, and working all the time.
Yeah, that's sounds about right when it comes to the single parent life. Either you're chasing your kid around, or you're working, or you're just like, I don't even know what else is going on. Just those two things. Anything else, everything else just kind of happens, right? Anything else is just kind of secondary to like those two big parts of life, huh?
Absolutely. Yep. Working out,
Oh,
working,
there you
or
go. I
working
see
with
the
the kid.
gains.
Yeah.
For the video listener watchers of the show, you can see those arms. We see those arms. Well, not me. That's why I had to wear like a t-shirt over my arms. 'Cause I haven't been catching up. It's still a new year. Still recovering from Christmas and Thanksgiving food. I guess we'll just say.
Oh, you're all good. Yeah, let's do that. That's
For
good.
sure. Well, again, I super appreciate you joining. Basically, what I just wanted to do. Well, first of all, we gotta let the people get to know you a little bit because I kind of said, you're a single parent, single father. Yeah, that kind of the basis of it. But when it comes to you, when it comes to your parenting story, when it comes to your journey, what do the people need to know before we kind of get into some other topics today? So tell us a little bit about you, Austin.
So I guess starting off, I wouldn't be here without my parents. So I mean, it goes back into the same thing with you, I'm sure. So long story short, I'll do my best here without rambling. Is I had Jackson Riley Saunders when I was 16.
Okay.
When I was 16, that kind of moved on into we went to court around when I was about 18 or 19 to get a good schedule. But I'm kind of getting too far ahead here. You're talking about gains here. I've always been a martial artist since,
Right.
Around 12, 13. That's when I started going to the gym, had my first fight with Muay Thai. Muay Thai is like, to Americanize it for everybody that's watching, it's kickboxing with elbows and knees. And so I've done that ever since I was 12, 13. I think I went right when I was 12, and then I turned 13 in the gym, and so I can never really remember. I'm 25 right now, and I have national title, a state
Ooh.
title in Nevada, and a state title in California. So, and a big thing when it comes for me describing that to a lot of people is when I was younger, sure, I would flaunt the cocky, okay, I'm a fighter type
Mhm.
deal.
Mhm.
But going through a lot of it's either be humble or get humbled. And I got
Right.
humbled a lot with having that attitude when I was a younger guy. Still young, but when I was much younger, got humbled a lot. And right now, I would say for the past 4 years, thanks to my coach Darian at Momentum Martial Arts in Reno, he has really implemented a huge focus on mental diet, what you consume, what music you're listening to,
Hmm.
what food you're eating, obviously, because everything is an energy source, everything is a frequency and a vibration.
Right.
The people you hang out with and associate with. I always was a martial artist.
Mhm.
I always competed. My first fight when I was about 13 or 14, and then went from there and kept on going. I have another fight coming up in
Oh,
February,
nice.
so pretty close here.
Mhm.
And that's always been my basis, or not basis, but my base of having a good structure to keep me away from anything that would lead me down a bad path.
Mhm.
And I was very lucky once I did have my son that I had martial arts and a good group of men
Right.
to, push me in the right direction. So, it's pretty funny. Not much has changed besides making better choices
There you go.
from being a younger guy till now, because all I'm doing is working, getting a paycheck and,
Mhm.
trying to expand my knowledge with what I do. I
Yeah.
am a security officer at one of the casinos here in Reno, and I see a lot of interesting stuff that I have to make sure that I don't bring home.
Right.
Um, and I go to the gym. I work my ass off there. And what's beautiful with all of it is my son gets to see me do it.
Oh, that's cool.
And as a single father,
Yeah.
one of the biggest things is to lead by example.
Yeah.
And I tell him things very, very seldom, but he doesn't have to necessarily listen too much because he can just watch dad do it.
Yep.
So, yep,
That's very cool.
security,
Yeah.
martial artist, and a father.
And
So
a
that's
father.
it.
That's like a triple threat right there. You're like a renaissance man. That's legit. That's legit. So I guess
Mm.
like that's really cool. It's nice to know that through your martial arts and through not even just the physical stuff that you were able to learn and take in there, but also sounds like a lot of like mental and personal and relational stuff you learned there along the way. How have you seen some of the values and teachings and aspects of that side of your martial arts play into the raising of your son?
Oh my gosh, so much to add to what you just said is it's
Yeah.
also spiritual too.
Ah, there
There's
you
a
go.
lot of, quote unquote atheists
Yeah.
that will fight and then they'll get out of the ring and they'll say, "Oh my gosh, there's something deep inside me that really pushed me,
Hmm.
to keep going throughout the round. I got dropped in the first round, but then I pushed myself, something was
Yeah.
deep inside myself." So I would say the spiritual aspect, because I feel like a lot of people are grown with their parents' types
Mhm.
of uh, theology that they hear when they're growing up rather than learning their own experience. And so having a spiritual experience and then also knowing that there is also somebody bigger, faster, stronger, better looking than, anybody out there. So it
Yeah.
humbles you. And
Sure.
I looked up to my dad. I looked up to Mason's dad
Hmm.
so much growing up, and they didn't fight. They
Right.
weren't
Right.
fighters, right? They weren't competitors, I should say. And my son looked up to me so much where it got to a point where I fought up in Tahoe and I
Hmm.
lost, and
Oh.
he was just blown away. He was like, "What? Like something must have happened. Like there's no way dad can lose."
Yep.
And that was a beautiful moment that really made me actually feel a lot better about the competition, even though I could have done better. we're both fathers. We always take every little tiny choice for, accountability wise.
Mm-hmm.
But that made me feel better because I got to show my son, no matter what, you showing up, having accountability, working
Yeah.
your ass off, you can still lose.
Yeah.
And, losing is a huge factor in life,
Mm.
and learning from it is an even bigger factor. So learning from your losses, having spiritual growth, and having the humility behind it. So those are huge things that have
Yeah.
not only gone on to me and I've passed on to my family, but Jackson, my son, can just absorb it like a sponge. So it's a
That's
huge thing.
great.
And knowing that there's no such thing as the best, how long does a UFC champion have his title? Not too
Right.
long, right?
Yeah.
Somebody always comes by and gets it pretty quick. So
Something to think about.
It's just really cool to see the blending of like your passion into your parenting, because I think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this too, will kind of look to compartmentalize their life, right? Like, so this is what I do for myself. I'm training, or I have this hobby, or I have this passion, or whatever. But then I'm also a parent. I wear this hat when I'm over here, and those things don't always like come together. Like, maybe sometimes they have to, but it's just really easy to kind of get in the mindset that, like, well, I got to take this hat off and I got to be this type of person. But then when I'm with my kids, I got to be this type of person and think this way. But it sounds like you can maybe speak to this. Like, for you, you've kind of found a way to take something that you've been doing for years and not like make it something else on top of what you're doing as far as raising your son, but kind of blend it into your parenting and make your son help him be a part of it, which I think sounds pretty cool.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would 100% agree. I'm lucky that I got into the sport at a young age.
Yeah.
Jackson's 8 years old and he's doing it 4 years younger than
Oh.
me. So,
Yeah.
the whole goal of being a father is to make sure that your children do a better job than you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
true.
learn from our mistakes. Um, and yeah, I think that I do not have to switch hats
Yep.
too often, yet alone at all, because I always try to be as humble as possible, whether I'm at work and I'm
Mm.
dealing with, somebody that's very frustrated in my face, or I'm at, weigh-ins and I'm at a competition and somebody's trying to, intimidate and,
Yeah.
try to kind of get in my head. Because, at the end of the day, when you get to a certain level of the sport and you've been doing it for so long, it is all mentality and mind games.
Mm-hmm.
um at least 90% of it. Then there's the good 10% of it that's physical. But yeah, the mentality of knowing that I am a protector. I'm here to
Yeah.
protect my son. I'm here to prepare him. I'm not here to be paranoid. I'm here to be prepared, right? And yeah, I do not have to switch hats that often, yet alone at all. And it definitely comes in together. But like I
Yep.
said, it really comes down to having, a really good group of not only people but men around you. If
Sure.
you're a
Yeah.
male, having good males. If you're a female, having good females around you.
That's good.
It's very important. So
That's cool. All right. But speaking of men, speaking of males, I've been looking forward to this podcast recording all week because, as I said, I love talking to all the single moms that come through the show and get their perspective. But it's not too often that I get to talk to a fellow single dad. So I'm really excited to get your perspective on this point in particular. Because I've said it a couple times on the show before, that one of my biggest pet peeves is when people look at men, dads in particular, and kind of almost, what's the best way to put this? Give them this over dramatic sense of praise and give them their flowers basically for being and doing the bare minimum. Or I like to say, like, people will use the phrase when like men are hanging out with their kids, like, oh yeah, so and so Anthony's watching his girls, or I've even heard like, oh, Anthony's babysitting the girls tonight. And I'm just
oh
like,
yeah,
no, I'm not watching my kids. I'm not babysitting my kids. I'm parenting my kids because they're my kids.
yeah,
And I don't
Yeah.
want praise and flowers for doing the bare minimum, like, oh, you're such a good dad. You took them to school and you picked them up and you showed up to their sporting events. Like, oh, Pat, I'm like, yeah, cool. Thank you for noticing that. But like, duh, like every parent should
Right.
be doing those things. So like sometimes I think men either get praise for doing way too little, or
Hmm.
they sometimes the ones who actually are showing up, busting their ass, being present, going to bed exhausted because they're pouring out to their kids 24/7. Those men, I don't think, get enough credit because, well, to be fair, there's not a whole lot of men doing that
Oh,
these
absolutely.
days. So I think a lot
Yeah.
of times that stereotype, even though it kind of can be debated, there's truth to it. Like a lot of the people who are stepping up
100%.
more in the single parent realm are the moms, are the women these days. But there are
Yeah.
definitely men who do show up and who are present and loving and provide a safe and secure environment for their kids. And I believe that hopefully people would not disagree that we're two of those type of men. So as
Oh,
you, as a
absolutely.
dad, as somebody who is active in his son's life, who does show up, who's there, who's handling his business, what does that mean to you, particularly being a single dad in your son's life on the regular?
So I have a few things to jump on
Do it.
here. The biggest thing for me is being present. Um, being present because, my dad did a fantastic job. He did a fantastic job. He had so many different, I tell my son there's tools. People are grown up with certain tools, and
Yeah.
some people don't have those tools. And I'm here to give you as much tools as possible, whether that's communication, honesty, accountability, all those different things. Um, so my dad would take me fishing,
Mm-hmm.
and he would take me fishing, and he wasn't too good at it. He got very good at it, later on in his life, right? And he can do it now with my son, his
Yeah.
grandson,
Mm-hmm.
which is fantastic. But the thing that I saw the difference of with my parenting towards his parenting
Yeah.
was the presence of mind. He would go out of his way to fish with me,
Mm-hmm.
but then there wasn't too much presence of mind to have some type of conversation. I'm not
Oh,
taking anything away from my father,
sure.
but at the same time, there's also those things that you want to add on. Okay, what happened with my parents that I
Right.
can take from and add to, my parenting?
Yep.
So the biggest thing with me is I want to be present.
I
I
like
have
it.
this thing, as you can tell. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of over talk and
Oh.
overanalyze and ramble. You can relate, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes, I have to, kind of slow my roll. And the biggest thing that I've focused on now, like you said, there's going to be a million things to talk about in this podcast. You think you got one phase down, and then the next phase starts,
Literally,
and there's,
yes.
all this tons of stuff. You're like, okay, I got it in the bag. And
Yep.
then boom, a new phase starts. And so being adaptable and being present is huge. Um, Now, it's easier said than done, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm lucky that my son can, come to the gym with me and enjoy the time like that, right? And I never want to force him into doing anything that he doesn't want to do.
Right.
But this is something that he sees his dad does, that his dad's good at, and it builds a lot of confidence and all those, fun, good things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so going back to kind of single moms and single fathers, there are plenty of deadbeats that run
Yeah.
away, and
Yep.
they're drunks, and they sit on their ass, and then they wait
Mm-hmm.
until the kid's 10, 12 years old, through the diaper phase, through the puberty phase, through all these different things, and then they want the time, right?
Right.
But the parents, that stick around through all these different phases, and don't want flowers. All we want is, to see our children flourish and do a
Yes.
fantastic job and do a better job than us.
Yeah.
And if we can take the accountability that we've made mistakes, and we want to make sure that our kids don't want to make the same mistakes as us, at least be grateful that we're around and that we want to be present in that moment and share and build so many memories together. So kind of going off onto the single mother side of things is, yes, it is. I would definitely say it's a little bit more inflated now.
Yeah.
You know, praise, you know, single mothers are the best. But
Yep.
if you look at the statistics real quick, 1970 to 2023, the statistics show that there were around 15.9 million children living with a single mother,
Mm.
and with fathers it's a 3.5 million
Hmm.
children that live with their father. So that's a 12 million difference. That's a
Yep.
huge difference. So I get the statistics, but
Mm-hmm.
there's some silver linings in there. How
Mm.
many people go to prison with single mothers?
Right.
Right? I could bring
Yeah.
all that up and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's going to be upset about that, right? Right. But
It's
you know,
true.
there's a lot of it's very true. There's a
Yep.
lot of silver linings that come up that people do not
Hmm.
want to acknowledge or recognize. And I think right there, you know, just going off the statistics, okay, if there's a bigger number, so there's 15.9 million children living with a single mother. All right, that's fantastic. That means that women are doing their job. They,
Yeah.
you know, push the baby out, they're there, they're doing a great job. But
Yep.
that's the thing, they're there. So
Yeah.
how many of those single independent woman, strong independent woman that I see at the club every night, how many of them are actually present with their child?
Hmm.
How many of them are actually hanging out and not just babysitting, not just
Right.
having a whole bunch of friends over? I would beg to differ. Since it's a smaller number, it
Yeah.
shows that there's less fathers in that category that actually don't show up. So the or excuse me, do.
Yeah.
So the 3.5 million single fathers, and statistics are statistics. Everything is, you know,
Yeah.
everything is woozy and up and down and blurry. We
Yeah.
can take numbers, you know, just like we can take anything else that we get information wise in this world with a grain of salt. But just going off of that, I think that if I sacrificed my whole life, you know, like I said, I have my one friend, Mason, that I see every once in a while, and that's like
Mm-hmm.
every 6 months, if at best.
Hmm.
I do not go out, I work and I work out, and that's it. I have time with my son, and I do my best to not push him into anything. I would say that there are more single fathers out there that do their job
Hmm.
and have no problem complaining. What have we been told as men growing up? Hey, you got to suck it up. You got to be
Yep.
tough,
Yep.
you know, and all those different things. I would say all those are good things, but it's all to a degree. Everything in life is a double-edged sword.
Mm.
And so when there's so much praise around one subject, I would say there's a silver lining to it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you never hear anything, you know, Mother's Day, for example, how many
Right.
posts do you see all over social media? And then how many posts do you see for Father's Day? it
Yeah.
is it is night and day, man. It
That's
is night
true.
and day. I'm not here complaining, but what I am here is answering the question and saying there's a huge difference. And I would say that, you know, being a present father, they have goals, they lead by example, they
Yeah.
work hard, and they barely complain.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest thing that children can take from is actually looking and seeing, monkey see, monkey do,
Yeah.
right? You're
Yeah.
going to see and you're going to follow rather than listen to all these complaints and, you know, how I feel, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So, if that kind of answers your question,
Yeah.
I'll boil it down to the Mother's Day social media post to the Father's Day social media post. It's
Yes.
a night and day difference. So that's my cue on those things. Being present and
Yeah.
showing that hard work, night and day.
I think that's good. Yeah, I think it's interesting. You're right. The stigma of men in particular, I think some of the social shift is changing a little bit, but it's still there for
Yeah,
sure. Of like, yeah, you're right. As a man rather, you show up, you do what you're supposed to do, you provide, you don't complain, you don't have these big emotions, you don't even honestly get thanked a lot because this is just what you're supposed to do. So nobody's patting you on the back. Nobody's going to give you a cookie. Nobody's going to do all these things. And yet so many men out there are showing up and putting in the work and being present. And I don't think there is anything wrong or it takes away their manliness or what have you for recognizing them. And for, like you said, on Father's Day, blowing up and celebrating those men just as much as we celebrate the moms on Mother's Day. Because at the end of the day, it's what I always preach is not fathers, mothers, whatever. As long as you are a parent who shows up for your kids and provides and does all the things. Nobody's perfect. Obviously, everybody's going to mess up. God knows I do 100 times a day. But as long as you're showing up,
100%, same here.
Seriously, everybody does. We get that. That's not what we're saying. But everybody who just shows up and says, you know what, I'm going to just do the best I can. I'm going to give it my all. At the end of the day, as long as I can look back and say, hey, I loved my kids to the best of my ability. Sure, there might be some things I need to tweak and apologize for tomorrow. Whatever, that's cool. But I'm just going to keep doing the best I can. If you're doing that, especially as a man, then we're going to stand on this podcast. Thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Because again, I don't think society says thank you to those men enough. So we're going to say thank you here.
Likewise, man.
On the podcast.
Likewise.
For those guys who are doing it. You guys are seen. We see you. We appreciate you. And I know that your kids, no matter how old they are, they're going to appreciate you. My kids, they're big into like YouTube right now. And so there's all these goofy YouTube videos about like kids like randomly waking up and getting $1 million and all the stuff they do. And so my daughter was watching one of those the other day and she randomly asked me, she was like, Dad, what would you do if you could have, basically she said, how did she say it? She said, would you rather have us as your kids or get $1 billion? Which would you take? And I was like, of course I'm taking you guys. Like, what kind of question is that? And so I flipped it on her sister because her sister wasn't in the room, so she didn't like hear what I had said or even the context. So when her sister walked in the room, I said, hey, Ev, what would you rather have, me as your dad or $1 billion? Because I know she just watched one of those videos where kids get rich overnight and all the cool stuff they have, and it seems so awesome. And it made me feel good because she just looked at me and she's like, you as my dad, duh. Like, I don't care about that.
Yeah.
And I was just like, you know what? Because again, nobody's perfect. We're failing. We're doing stuff crazy sometimes.
We're human.
We lose our temper. We're human.
Yeah.
But like you were saying, the kids are watching and your presence, they're taking that in. So it made me feel good, even though she just saw this fun, cool video about how awesome it is if you have $1 billion. She knows that her dad is worth more than that, at least in her eyes, and that her dad is loving, and she didn't even hesitate. And so, yeah, that made me feel pretty good. And so if that's you out there, same thing. If you're doing that with your kids, then round of applause to you. We love to see it. We love to see it.
Something to be encouraged by.
All right, Austin, before we officially wrap up, this last little segment is just a time where I just use to encourage the people as they head about their day, head about their week, whatever they have going on. We love the single parents on the show. We love the life. We love what they're doing. But if we're all being a little real, sometimes just being not even just a single parent, but being a parent in general can just be a lot sometimes, take a lot out of you, can not always be cupcakes and roses. And so we try to encourage the people before they go out and do what they got to do. So for you, being a single dad, raising your son for the last 8 years, I think you said, has there been any like a good source of like encouragement that you kind of stand on when it comes to your parenting day-to-day life?
A big source of encouragement is my father. And interesting, right? Talking about single dads and how, is my father. He's and I'm so lucky to have him. He's always there for me. He always keeps me in place. He always helps me with my grandson. And he is a huge source of encouragement. And I would just say for any of the viewers listening is that, look at me. I have a tank top on, I have a hat, I look like I just got out of high school, and you never know who you're dealing with. And so what I would say is,
Mm-hmm.
always be encouraged by the unknown, embrace the uncomfortable, embrace the unknown, because we never know what's going to come tomorrow. We never know
Yeah,
what's going to come today. And the best thing is the presence right now,
I like
and
that.
being present. And so um, yeah, I would say my father,
That's
and
cool.
knowing that there is so much unknown out there. That's
Yeah.
for sure.
I like that. I think about that often because if you think about it, especially when you're a kid in America. I know we have listeners, other countries who check out this show, but maybe it's like this there. But I know for America, the mentality that you're kind of instilled with growing up is that you're gonna eventually finish school, and then maybe you'll meet somebody, and then you'll get married, and then you'll have kids, and then this will kind of be your life. And so you're kind of raised with that mindset, and then a lot of people head into that. Not everybody falls into that, but a lot of people
Right.
kind of head that direction. Nobody's really saying when you're 6 and 7 years old, like, hey, like when you grow up, you're going to be a single mom or you're a single dad and you're going to figure it out and you're going to just do things solo. Like they don't like say that. Usually the single parent life is a result of other stuff happening along the way. It's not something somebody sits down in their dream diary when they're 7 and writes like, I can't wait to be a single mom. But
Oh
to your
yeah.
point, I think there's something cool about that because although like many of us probably didn't dream about this life or kind of expect it when we were kids or teenagers, what have you, we're in this life now. This is our situation. This is our scenario. This is what we have presently in front of us. So
Yeah.
it can be really tempting to kind of look at what we have and be like, man, like stuff didn't quote unquote pan out, or I failed, or I should have done this, or maybe I should have pursued that, or when I look back at what I thought life would be when I was a kid and this isn't it. Instead of doing all that, just say, you know what, this is what we got, and I'm gonna thrive in it, and I'm gonna make the best of it. And I'm not just going to, this is a big thing I have to tell myself, is I'm not just going to survive in this time, just gotta make it through, just gotta figure it out, but to slow down and enough to cherish it and appreciate it and to enjoy what I have, even though this is what I have. Maybe it's not what I expected. If you go back in time and talk to 12-year-old Anthony and be like, hey,
Right.
12-year-old Anthony, what do you think your life's going to be like in 20-something years? He would not give you this. He would not give you this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But this is what it is. And
Yeah.
so to enjoy it, to celebrate, because the fact is, this kind of goes both ways to the point where another, 10, 20 years, we don't know what's
Yep.
coming our way that way too. So who knows? Eventually stuff could change for me, change for my kids, change in a whole different ways. We just don't know.
Absolutely.
So 45-year-old Anthony would probably say the same thing about 34-year-old Anthony as 34-year-old Anthony saying about 12-year-old Anthony. Like 34-year-old Anthony just, he has no idea. But I think that's the cool, awesome part of life, because it truly does allow
100%.
you just to be
Yeah.
present and enjoy what you have now. I think that's really awesome. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Likewise. I love it, man. Yep. It's true. Never know what you're going to get. So you got to appreciate every moment.
I like it. I like it. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you'll come back on the show again sometime if you're down and want to keep
Absolutely.
chatting. Because, like you said, we've got
Absolutely.
parenting life. There's always plenty of stuff to talk about. So I don't think we'll
So much.
run
So
out
much.
of talking points anytime soon. So I know we'd love to have you
Never.
back.
Hey, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate it. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the Single Parents Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us yet again. Until next time, my name's Anthony, and you out there, just stay beautiful. Bye.